بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، اللهم لعن بني أمية قاطبا. Umar ibn al-Khattab and Uthman bin Affan gave life to Bani Umayyah after everybody had thought that they had finally died and perished and were to be forgotten. Indeed, if you were to examine the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab and Uthman bin Affan, you'll see many of the main personalities involved in the atrocities that led to Karbala, or those who were related to those who were involved at Karbala, were appointments made by these two caliphs. Because many people ask the question that how is it 50 years after the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family died, that the Umayyads were the most powerful group of people again? Only 50 years before Karbala, the Umayyads were begging the Prophet for life. Upon the opening of Mecca, you found that there was a group of them by the name of the Tulaqa. Many of you would have heard Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam in Sham telling Yazid, Amin al-Adli ibn al-Tulaqa, is it just, O son of those who were freed? Taliq, divorce, is normally a word that we associate in personal law, that when someone goes through a talaq, it means that they are freed from a particular contract that they may be involved in. Tulaqa are those who were freed on the day of Mecca. They really should have all been executed for their war crimes that they had committed against the Muslims. But on the day of the opening of Mecca, you had certain personalities who the Prophet decided to show mercy to on that day. Everybody was expecting that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family would use his sword to kill the likes of Abu Sufyan, for example, or to kill others such as the wife like Hind, and make sure that she was executed and Abu Sufyan was executed. Yet you found that on that day, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family said that today is the day of mercy. Let these people remain alive, take an example in the hope that these people will look at me as a mercy to mankind, because in the 20 odd years before this, they would always attack me. There were some of the Umayyads who felt that there was no way back for them. Some of them had been banished completely. There were some Umayyads from, for example, Banu al-Hakam or Banu al-As. They had been banished from Medina completely. You know, when you give somebody a deportation order, that you're not allowed to be back in this country ever again. Don't ever think that you'll come back. The likes of Hakam ibn al-As, Marwan ibn al-Hakam were completely deported. They were completely kicked out of Medina. How is it then that the question arises that somebody like Abu Sufyan's son or grandson suddenly assumes the helm? How many of you have asked this question? That how does Muawiyah suddenly become so important when only 30 odd years before Muawiyah assumed power, he was the lowest of the low? The reality is that there are two figures who resuscitate Bani Umayyah, and they are the second and the third Khalifa. Umar ibn al-Khattab and Uthman bin Affan had their own vested interests in why they would resuscitate. To many in the Muslim world today, they don't know anything about Umar's relationship with Muawiyah. Ask many, even in the Shia world, that Umar and Muawiyah, what's their relationship with each other? Many don't know. Many have a difference with Umar and have a difference with Muawiyah. But what's the relationship between Umar and Muawiyah? What's the relationship, for example, between Uthman and Marwan ibn al-Hakam. What is their relationship with each other? Because if I, as a non-Shi'i, believe that somebody like Umar or somebody like Uthman is somebody who is rightly guided, what if they appoint certain personalities who themselves were the enemy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What would that say about them? If now I know that Muawiyah is the son of Hind, his mother was a cannibal, she ate the liver of Hamza on the day of Uhud, am I gonna really give Muawiyah a position of power? Am I going to look at somebody like Marwan who's been banished and bring them back? Because when Karbala happens, Marwan ibn al-Hakam is a huge governor in Medina. But how does he become governor of Medina? Just before Karbala happened, Muawiyah is calling all the shots. How did Muawiyah get to a level where he calls all the shots? The reality is that when you examine Umar and Uthman's role, they revived Bani Umayyah when Bani Umayyah virtually finished. The Umayyads, who were at the lowest ebb, suddenly you find them revived. How they are revived? Let's examine tonight and seek to understand the way Muawiyah, Marwan, Al-Hakam ibn al-As, Walid ibn Uqba, and others from the Umayyads, how at one point they were the lowest of the low, and then they became the highest of the high. I'd like to do this in the following stages. Number one, how did Umar ibn al-Khattab come into power? Number two, when Umar comes into power, who's one of his main appointments upon coming into power? And how is it that Umar ensured that Muawiyah became governor of 4 of the biggest countries in the Muslim world today? Number three, why did Umar put Muawiyah there? And why wasn't Umar ruthless with Muawiyah the way he normally was ruthless with others? Number four, when Umar dies, how does Uthman come into power? And how would non-Muslims laugh if they found out about our election system? Number five, when Uthman does come into power, how comes he suddenly brings all of Rasulullah's enemies back into power again? Number six, when the Muslims begin to complain about Uthman bringing Bani Umayyah back, what was Uthman's response to them? And are they any Muslims? Is Abu Dharr and Abdullah bin Mas'ud counted as any Muslim? And how do they speak out against Uthman? Number seven, what led to Uthman's assassination? Why was Uthman killed? What was the reason behind the Muslims wanting him killed? What was Imam Ali's stance on that day and his advice to Uthman when Uthman was making Marwan get closer? And how did Imam Ali himself make clear that if you allow all of these to come into power, then they'll take out all their venom, not just on me, but on all my children as well. And on the 10th of Muharram, how did they take out their venom on the children of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi? Let's examine this and dissect the topic in depth. Abu Bakr was Khalifa after the Saqifa regime had been established. He was Khalifa for a few years. He died a few years after assuming power. Upon his deathbed, Abu Bakr appointed Umar. Question, how comes you're allowed to appoint? The reality is that you, when you're dying, you're allowed to appoint somebody. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, when he died, left it for an election. One of the most baffling things in Islamic history is when you look at the way people came in. If you ask many non-Shia, did the Prophet appoint a successor? They say, no. He left it for the people to decide. If the Prophet left it for the people to decide, what gives Abu Bakr the authority to appoint the leader after him? Abu Bakr all of a sudden says, allow elections, allow Saqifa, allow people voting. I'm choosing. What you going to do about it? And so Abu Bakr, while he was dying, he went into moments of consciousness, unconscious, consciousness, unconscious. If I saw that and I remembered what happened with the pen and paper, I would turn around and say, you know what, you're ill. The Qur'an's enough for us. And the reality is that I could also say that be careful what you say, you're delirious because you're going in, out, in, out. I need someone who's all here. But nobody dared say that to Abu Bakr the way they said it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With Abu Bakr, all Uthman did is when Abu Bakr was saying his wasiyah, Uthman just came and he put Umar's name down. Has any Muslim got a problem with it? Is there an issue, Talha? Do any of you have an issue? No, there's no issue. Umar ibn al-Khattab becomes Khalifa. When Umar becomes Khalifa, Umar takes on the religion of Islam, and now the religion, of course, is spread far and wide. The religion having spread far and wide, we found that in its spread far and wide, it had gone towards Syria, it had gone to Iran, it had gone to Jerusalem, it had gone to different areas. Umar therefore needed to appoint governors, and these governors were to be the ones who took the helm in each of these areas. But Umar was also ruthless. If there was a governor who he felt wasn't doing the job properly, he'll either dismiss him or he'll put someone to keep him under check, for example. So, for example, Umar ibn al-Khattab had appointed Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, father of Umar bin Sa'ad at Karbala, he had appointed him to be the person who oversaw Iraq, for example. But then he also dismissed him. He appointed Khalid ibn al-Walid, but he also dismissed Khalid ibn al-Walid. Amr ibn al-As, he used to keep a check on him. Umar himself was ruthless in the way that he would deal with people. As in, there's incidents where I remember reading that Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, Umar once hit him. He said to him, why? He said, because when I walked in, you didn't stand up for me. Just randomly hit him, just like that. Or another occasion, Umar goes to a market one day, someone's buying meat. The next day, Umar goes again, sees him buying meat, hits him. He says, why are you doing israf, buying meat 2 days in a row? He said, Baba, even if someone's gone to the supermarket to buy meat for a couple of days in a row, what's the issue? As in, that's his personal life. Umar was ruthless in every case, except one man. One man who he's responsible for appointing, and is his sadaqah jariyah until today. Who appointed Muawiyah to be governor of Sham? Umar ibn al-Khattab. How did Muawiyah get into power? Abu Sufyan had a number of sons. One of them was called Yazid, who later on his nephew is named after him. One Yazid, what was he? He was the governor of Syria. A plague happened while Umar was Khalifa. When that plague happened, Umar was Khalifa. Abu Sufyan, his son Yazid, died in that plague. When Yazid died in that plague, Umar went to offer condolences to Abu Sufyan. Look how the world has turned. Abu Sufyan, who 10 years earlier is literally dying, worried about what's going to happen to him. Now we have Umar offering him condolences. Can you imagine? Abu Sufyan must be thinking, you know what? How much I hurt Muhammad, how much I attacked Muhammad, and now I've got his own khulafa coming to me, sending condolences to me, and so on and so forth. So when Umar came and sent his condolences to Abu Sufyan said, enough, tell me, what's going to happen now that my son's died? Umar said, I'm going to appoint your other son to be governor of Sham. Umar ibn al-Khattab, 40 years before Karbala, appoints Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan to have Sham in his hands. I ask you a question. You want to appoint a governor. Surely you look at their CV, don't you? As in, you look at someone's CV, you'd think that if I'm going to appoint a governor, I'd appoint someone whose knowledge, his ilm is the highest, someone whose taqwa is the highest, someone who even the word la'na has never ever come near him. Never has, for example, the Prophet ever done la'na or a prayer asking Allah to withdraw his rahmah from him. You would think that that's the type of person you'd appoint. Because I remember reading, back in the day, reading the Tabaqat of Ibn Sa'ad and Mu'jam of Al-Tabarani. These are two famous texts in non-Shi'i world. They have a narration which if you bring it together, you add it together, it results in the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, doing la'na on Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah while the Prophet was alive. What is the narration? Narration from Nasr bin Asim al-Laythi. Yes. He is the one who narrates it from his father that the Prophet in Medina, one day the people were calling out, we seek refuge from the anger of Allah and the anger of his Prophet. Why? They asked them. Said because Muawiyah was in the mosque with his father Abu Sufyan. He then told his father, let's leave. And the Prophet said, Allahumma al'an al-qa'id wal-maqood. Oh Allah, withdraw your mercy from the one who's guiding and the one who's being guided. Or the leader and the one who's being led. This is not in Shia literature, because I know if it was in Shia literature, you say, you Shia do la'na, all of this la'na. When I do la'na and I say, Allahumma al'an Bani Umayyah qatiba, oh Allah, withdraw your rahmah from Bani Umayyah, there are members of Bani Umayyah I have no issue with. Khalid ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, Amawi, I have the highest respect for. Aban ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, I have the highest respect for. Amr ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, all of these are Umayyads, by the way, I have the highest respect for. Later, Sa'ad al-Khair, Imam al-Baqir has respect for him. He's an Amawi, I have respect for him. Even Muawiyah, son of Yazid, we have a certain amount of respect for him. It's not a matter of just having disrespect for the Umayyads outright. It's the ones who had that hatred to Muhammad and al-Muhammad that I have an issue with. سَمِعَتْ بِذَلِكَ فَرَضِيَتْ بِهِ. The ones who heard about the atrocities and they accepted what took place. When I have someone like Muawiyah, who I have a hadith saying, Allahumma al-an al-qa'id, and who? Wal-maqud. Oh Allah, withdraw your mercy from Muawiyah and his father Abu Sufyan. Oh Umar, why are you putting Muawiyah in power? There was no one else to put in power. Notice, in the time of Abu Bakr, Imam Ali is never a governor, never given any position. In the time of Umar, never given any position. Even if he maybe doesn't want positions. But let's ask the question to those who say that Abu Bakr and Ali, Umar and Ali, Uthman and Ali were all best friends. I ask you, who took the positions in the time of these khulafa? Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan has a position. Ali bin Abi Talib, 0 positions. Kufa, nothing. Sham, nothing. Not that Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, needs positions. He's already Imam from the day of Ghadir. You can have as many positions as you want. If I'm chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've got nothing to lose whatsoever. But it's your loss not having Amir al-Mu'mineen in these positions. But Muawiyah, for goodness sake, was this man with the Prophet from day one? This is a man of the tulaqa, freed on the opening of Mecca. Umar, why Muawiyah? And then on top of that, when Umar meets Muawiyah and sees the way Muawiyah lives in Sham, you know Muawiyah, what he had because of Umar? You know what was in his control? Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan. All his. All his. You gave Abu Sufyan's kids that much? Because Abu Sufyan's kids gave me that much back? They showed that much love to Rasulullah or Umar? Well, you say that you love the Prophet and you are the successor of the Prophet. I've seen this man be part of a group who used to disrespect my Prophet. I give him all of these areas. Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan. All of them have Umayyad blood. I mean then. Then, of course. We're talking about then. Umayyad pure blood. Why? Because they owe everything to Muawiyah. The greatness of Islam that they saw in where? In Palestine, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, was all to Muawiyah. All of these areas were Muawiyah, firmly in charge. Now you imagine Abu Sufyan's looking at it and thinking, hold on a minute, my boys have now got all of that. You know, if they handle this with care and they handle it properly, I think we can actually get vengeance for the man who hurt us at Badr and Uhud. This is a wonderful opportunity. Umar ibn al-Khattab, Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan is the best you have. That's the best person to put in Sham. He goes to see Muawiyah. Muawiyah living pompous, palaces, silk robes. Baba, where's Rasulullah and where's Muawiyah? All of a sudden, certain things, and I'm coming to examine Muawiyah in the next few nights, but he begins to see this. Umar normally is ruthless. You know what he does? He tells Muawiyah, how comes this is happening? What's going on? As in this pompous lifestyle and so on and so forth. Muawiyah goes, you know what? There's Roman spies everywhere. The Romans are watching the way that we live. They're interacting with us. So I've got to show the glory of Islam. So I have to live this lifestyle. You'd think Umar would therefore say to him, get out. The way he said to Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, the way he said to Khalid ibn al-Walid, get out of here, what you doing? No, on the contrary. It's just like, well, you know what? Sometimes your words, they do bewilder me. I know you have your way of talking. What is his best friend? I'm not understanding. As in normally, the most ruthless of all khulafa is on gentle terms with Muawiyah. Do what you want to do, O son of Hind. There's no issue. Your mom ate the liver of Hamza. It's all cool. You know what? This is a jariyah for you. You stay there. Muawiyah sat there in Sham comfortably, watching the Muslims, watching the development of Islam. Nobody could harass the nest and the house that he was building. And you found, therefore, that Umar never dismissed Muawiyah, never touched Muawiyah, never said a word against Muawiyah. He allowed Muawiyah to continue being in power until the day Umar died. When Umar died, okay, now we have to go back to square one. How do we choose a leader in Islam? Category A, Saqifa. Category B, best friend picks best friend. Now welcome to category C. Lock 6 people in a house and let them choose. And if 5 agree on one person and 1 disagrees, kill the one that disagrees. You know, this is how people do elections as human beings, of course. 5 people, if they agree on a person. So imagine 6 of us, we're sitting in a house. Umar says, you lock them first. Lock them all in the house because they got to make this decision. And who are the 6, by the way? All of them are promised Jannah. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Uthman, Talha, Zubair, Abd al-Rahman bin Auf, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. These 6 have to be in a house. 5 of them agree on a Khalifa. Hold on. Before we get to the numbers, I thought we need an election. No, not anymore. I've decided on 6 people only. Yeah, but why these 6? Why not 9? Why not 11.23? Why 6? I've decided. Hold on a minute. I'm not understanding. What's the method of choosing a leader here? At Ghadir, it was pretty obvious. Why are we in a shambles now? No problem. 5, if they agree on a person and 1 disagrees, you have to behead him. I just want the whole world, whoever's watching this, just to sit back just for a moment, whether you're Shia, non-Shia, whatever. You've got 10 people who are going Jannah. You've got 6 people out of 10 who are going Jannah. If 5 agree on a leader and 1 disagrees, you've got to behead the one that disagrees. Can you imagine meeting the guy in Jannah and be like, sorry, bruv. You know, I know that day went a bit wrong. Just forgive me. Like, because he ordered that I had to behead you. But you know what? Alhamdulillah, in Jannah, we get our heads back. We do. In Jannah, we get our heads back. And we're all youths again, and we're drinking honey and milk and so on and so forth. But can you imagine the person you beheaded? You're like, you know what? God forgive me. But I knew we were both going Jannah. That's why I beheaded you. If 4 agree and 2 disagree, what do? Behead the 2 that disagree. Now imagine 4 of you and 2, and you'll be in Jannah, and you're like, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, Abd al-Rahman bin Auf. You know, you got to forgive us. But that's the way we choose leaders. If 3 agree and 3 disagree, what do? 3 agree, 3 disagree, then Abd al-Rahman bin Auf decides who the leader is out of these. Why Abd al-Rahman bin Auf? Well, Imam Ali in Shaqshaqiyya makes it clear. They asked me to be part of a consultation committee. Since when was there a doubt about me being number 1 for me now to be part of a committee? One of them decided against me because of his hate for me, and so on and so forth. Anyway, a key crucial point emerges here. Abd al-Rahman bin Auf, when he asked them if 3 agree, 3 disagree, he said Ali ibn Abi Talib becomes the Khalifa in his opinion. Ali, will you follow the sunnah of the Prophet and of Abu Bakr and of Umar? Question. If Abu Bakr and Umar's sunnah is the same as the Prophet, why is it a condition? If they said to Imam Ali, for example, you got to follow the sunnah of the Prophet, that's it. Why the Shaykhain have now been included in the word sunnah? It means now there are certain decisions that have been made after the Prophet which contradict with the prophetic philosophy. And I could go into Taraweeh and Mut'ah and Hayya ala Khair al-Amal and hundreds of innovations, hundreds of bid'ah, which Imam Ali points to in his sermon when he said innovations became greater after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa died. Imam Ali said, I'll follow the sunnah of the Prophet, not the Shaykhain. Abu Bakr and Umar, no. No chance. Uthman, will you follow the sunnah of the Prophet and Abu Bakr and Umar? He said yes. He became Khalifa. When Uthman became Khalifa, how old was he? 72. Uthman was old when he became Khalifa. He wasn't young. But when he became Khalifa, he decided to do something that led Islam upside down and possibly led to Karbala. What was it? Uthman, in his relatives, one part he's related to Bani Umayyah. Umar ibn al-Khattab had already put Muawiyah firmly where Muawiyah needed to be. Muawiyah had been appointed, no one could dismiss him. What does Uthman do? Uthman begins to bring back into power all the ones who the Prophet kicked out. One by one. How many of you have heard of the cursed tree in the Qur'an? You know, you hear the story of that there is a shajara which is mal'una. In Surah Al-Safat, this shajara which is mal'una, a cursed tree. And the Prophet sees in a dream, what does he see? He sees monkeys on the pulpits. And he gives the prediction, because nobody wants to say that's Bani Umayyah. They want to say that's Shajarat Zaqqum, and you know, the classic interpretation that there's the Shajara and the discussions of Zaqqum. No, Shajara Mal'una is a cursed tree, a tree which is far from the principles, and that the Prophet supposedly said that this is Banu al-Hakam and Banu al-As. Which two? Of Bani Umayyah, Banu al-Hakam, Banu al-As. Banu al-Hakam, who's the head, for example? Al-Hakam ibn al-As. Yeah? Who's his son? Marwan ibn al-Hakam. The Prophet kicked them out. He just kicked them out of Medina. Those two never come back. Ya Rasulullah, into your akhlaq is the best. Nope, out. These two. Wallah, there's one narration when they mention al-Wazagh ibn al-Wazagh. You know, like you've seen the Abu Bras. Abu Bras, what do they call it in English? Abu Bras. Gecko, lizard. This is Hakim ibn al-As and his son Marwan. Gecko. Lizard, the small one. In Iraq, we see it. You go to the bathroom, it's always flying around. You know, like, what's going to happen to me today? There's a proper jihad in here. Abu Bras, you see the Abu Bras everywhere. The Prophet himself would look at them and he would refer to them like they are the Abu Bras, for example. This same Marwan and his father, Hakam. Hakam is uncle of Uthman bin Affan. Kicked out by the Prophet. Sometimes Uthman even would plead with Abu Bakr, bring him back in. Nah. Umar, nah. Because they knew, people knew that this guy, Abu Bras, and his son, you can't bring them back in. You know what Uthman does? He brings Hakam ibn al-As back. What's your position? Tax collector. This guy, Hakam ibn al-As, is thinking, this man, his Prophet kicked me out. I'm now back. Tax collector of the Muslim world. 300,000 dirhams, nice, comfortably. Who then does he bring back? Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Marwan, who when Karbala happened was sitting like a king in Medina. And people blame Yazid bin Muawiyah as the reason that people like Marwan were in power. Who put Marwan there? أسس أساس الظلم. Zulm doesn't occur overnight. There's an asas. Marwan ibn al-Hakam was not just one day woke up and said, you know what, I'm here. Marwan ibn al-Hakam was placed in power. The khums of the Muslim community was in his pockets. This man, the khums of places like Africa, I'm talking millions, goes firmly in his pockets. He allowed this Marwan, because Marwan was also Uthman's son-in-law. Marwan, back in. Hakam ibn al-As, back in. Who else did they start bringing back in? Abdullah bin Khalid, Uthman's brother-in-law, another Umayyi, back in. Who else? Walid ibn Uqba. Walid ibn Uqba, I'm not sure if he's Uthman bin Affan's mom's first husband or second husband, but still he's an Umayyi. Walid bin Uqba, the Qur'an had said about him, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, in ja'akum fasiq. In ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. Oh, you who believe, when a wicked person, evil person, comes to you with a piece of news, verify the news. This man who made a lie about a group of Muslims, Bani Mustalaq, by saying that Bani Mustalaq were apostates. The Prophet said, go and collect tax from Bani Mustalaq. He went to Bani Mustalaq to collect the tax. He saw them come out. He had a problem with them in Jahiliyyah. When he saw them come out, he went back towards the Prophet and he told everyone they become kuffar. What do you mean they become kuffar? They come out to say salamu alaykum to you, but because your heart is dark, because your heart is evil, you think evil of the others. He comes back. He tells the Prophet, Prophet, I've got bad news. He goes, what is it? He said, you know, you asked me to go and collect tax. He said, yes. He said, slight problem. He said, what is it? He said, they become kuffar again. The Prophet said, that's impossible. They just became Muslim. He said, sorry, they become kuffar. The problem is, I know you don't believe in him as a prophet, but he receives emails from heaven. The Qur'an came down and said, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiq. Now, if someone, the Qur'an, listen, If a hadith says someone's fasiq, you're like, weak, strong, huh? If said Ammar says someone's fasiq, you're like, I'm not sure. If you hear someone's called fasiq, but if God calls someone fasiq, there's problems, isn't there? That guy's got problems, because there's no coming back. Because when God has put a stamp on you, there's no tawbah. If you're called fasiq, is there a tawbah? Especially when God makes it public in the Qur'an. Uthman bin Affan, Walid bin Uqba, what are you doing? Become governor of Kufa. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, what did he become? Prime Minister of Islam. Hakam ibn al-As, assistant to the PM. Allah. And they're surprised that Karbala happened. And do you know who these people hated the most? Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussain. Siyar al-Ulama al-Nubala, famous non-Shi'i work. I remember reading the hadith. Marwan ibn al-Hakam says to Imam al-Hassan, Antum ahlu baytin mal'oonun. Problem there, do you agree? You are a household, la'na on you. You are cursed. Marwan ibn al-Hakam. To Imam al-Hassan, Antum ahlu baytin mal'oon. Do you think it's random that the Prophet calls this man and his dad Abu Bras? Do you think it's random that the Prophet kicks them out of the country? Not Rasulullah even allowed Abu Sufyan to stay. But these guys, is like, no way these guys. Because these guys have such a hate, especially for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. In the coming nights, I'm going to show you how they taught their kids to hate Ali, so that one day if they met Ali's kids, they'll take everything out on them. The media machine of Sham, Muawiyah, was building Fox News times 1 billion. He was sitting comfortably in Sham, and now Uthman bin Affan began to bring who? Marwan ibn al-Hakam, here you go, Prime Minister. Hakam ibn al-As, here you go, you could be Assistant Prime Minister. Walid bin Uqba, why don't you become Foreign Minister? Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh, why don't you become Ambassador? Abdullah bin Khalid, become Ambassador. Suddenly all of Hind's children were in Islam. What are they going to do? Oh my Lord, what are they going to do? Who began to speak out? Major problem. If companions all love each other, I defy any non-Shi'i in the world to show me if the companions all loved each other. Explain to me Abu Dharr al-Ghafari's hate of Uthman bin Affan. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, 4th convert to Islam. 4th. Wouldn't you make him Prime Minister? Marwan ibn al-Hakam, his whole life hated Islam. You make him PM. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari gave his soul to the religion of Islam. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, nothing comes out of his mouth except truth. The skies have not seen anyone as pure as Abu Dharr al-Ghafari. In the earliest days of Islam, he gave everything away to the religion. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari begins to speak out against Uthman. What's all this? What's all this? Rasulullah's enemies. You're putting them all back in power? One by one, you're bringing them all back? I ask you, when Abu Dharr says this, does that mean he's become kafir, fasiq? Abu Dharr, you all respect him. He said, Uthman, Marwan comes back. Hakam ibn al-As comes back. All of these, Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh comes back. All of Rasulullah's enemies now have become PM, Vice PM, Foreign Secretary, Ambassador. Uthman, what does he do? He banishes Abu Dharr, kicks him out. Ya Rab, look how Islam, the tables have turned. The earliest companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi are now the ones kicked out. And Hind's children are the ones in power. And they tell me Karbala is because of Yazid? Give me a break. Give me a break. Yazid? What's Yazid? Yazid is just the person in his young age who wants to have fun and doesn't want people to get in the way of that fun. And if you get in the way of that fun, he wants to take it out ruthlessly on you. It's the ones who had the Islamic coating. Banish him. Where does he banish him? To Muawiyah. Allah. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, he banishes him to Muawiyah. Muawiyah's got the palaces and everything in Sham. What's Abu Dharr al-Ghafari do? Stands outside the palace every single day. Those who hoard gold and wealth and silver, those who hoard gold and silver, those who hoard gold and silver, those who hoard, you see sometimes outside some embassies in the world, you've always got that one person demonstrating every day, who you respect, because come rain, sun, shine, they're standing out there and they're demonstrating. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari stands outside Muawiyah's palace. Those who, Surah 9, verse number 34, Surah 9, verse number 34, every morning. Muawiyah's like, this guy's giving me a headache. Headache. Abu Dharr is a headache. Into what did you offer Islam and what did he offer Islam? Headache. Muawiyah said, hey, you take him back. Uthman said, okay, bring him back. You know what Uthman did? He said, you're going to continue to speak out? He goes, I will. Because the man chosen on the day of Ghadir, this religion would never have seen oppression. You people are the ones who went against that man. And you showed injustice to him. Knowing that on Ghadir, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa guided all of us that there wouldn't be the dhulm that there is now, that Marwan and Hakam ibn al-As and all of Bani Umayyah and Hind's children sit in power. He said, I'll banish you. Where do you banish him? To the Rabada. You know what Rabada? You know what that is? That's like a desert land. He made him go there, him, his wife and his kid. No food, no drink. He died alone. But these are not taught in the textbooks. Wallah, the amount of books I've read on companions of the Prophet which stop as soon as the Prophet died. And then afterwards, okay, tell me what happened after. I want to know what happened. Jamal, Safin, we're coming to all of these battles shortly in the forthcoming nights. What happened? Abu Dharr al-Ghafari dies alone. Yani this is what Islam became. Who else spoke out against Uthman? Because Bani Umayyah were all now in power. Who else spoke out? Abdullah bin Mas'ud. Ammar bin Yasir. Suddenly, one by one, they began to speak out. And you know what? They say that all of these guys spoke out because of a Yemeni Jew called Abdullah bin Saba. Yani none of these had aql. A Jew from Yemen has to come and say, by the way, I want to cause fitna between all you guys. So this is what you should do. Baba, have respect for the people's aql, for the love of God. Yani I know we never had internet for 1,000 years. You people got away with this nonsense. Now people have internet. They can read for themselves. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, Ammar bin Yasir, all of them began to speak out. Even Aisha, wife of the Prophet, began to speak out when she saw Walid bin Uqba leading Salat al-Fajr, Uthman's governor in Kufa, leading Salat al-Fajr in the 4th ruk'ah. This is unreal. In which ruk'ah? 4. Fajr is how many ruk'ah? How many ruk'ah is Fajr? 2. 4th ruk'ah. He turns around to them and goes, shall I continue? He was so drunk, he reached 4 in Fajr. When Aisha saw that, she said, this isn't enough. What's going on? We know that this guy in the Qur'an was called Fasiq. And now he's drunk. Baba, Ana, when I pray Fajr, I'm dying to finish at 1.5. When I get to Tashahhud, I'm telling you, my eyes are gone. My eyes are gone. How'd you get to 4? They told him, punish him. He said, I'm not going to punish him. His brother-in-law. Which brother-in-law? Bani Umayyah's nest is all now back in Islam. Until Imam Ali was the one who lashed him. He said, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. Someone's got to set an example. All of a sudden now in Africa, in Egypt, who was there? Uthman's foster brother, Abdullah bin Abi Sarh, who the Prophet, by the way, when he was alive, had ordered people to kill. But nobody did it. Now he was governor of Egypt, milking the money, absolutely rinsing the money of Egypt. The people of Egypt wrote to Uthman. What led to Uthman's assassination? And you know why I mention this? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen later is the one blamed for all this nonsense. Because of course, they get angry when Mawla becomes leader shortly. They tell Egyptians, tell Uthman, listen, this governor you have over here, firstly, the man's not religious. This old Amawi. And secondly, he's taking all the money. Uthman said, I'm not going to move him. I'm in power. Marwan oversees everything. Baba, Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Why do you think us Shia say, Allahumma al'an Marwan? Ala Marwan. True? Don't we always say that? When we say Al Marwan, why do we do la'an on Al Marwan? Because it's a cursed group of people with a severe hate of the Prophet first. First of the Prophet. Bani Umayyah have a history where they say, we are the caliphs of God. Muhammad is just normal. We are God's caliphs on earth. They degrade the Prophet up until certain periods. So what happened was that Abdullah bin Abi Sa'd, they complain about him. Uthman's like, I'm not moving him. Egyptians start getting rowdy. Egyptians, if they don't like their leader, whether it's then or now, they got their way of getting him out. Egyptians begin to complain They come towards Uthman. Uthman's not interested. That's my foster brother. That one's my uncle. This one's my cousin. These are all Umayyads. I'm an Umayyad and they all stay. Egyptians came. They came in big number. Uthman gets into trouble. Who does he ask for help? Amir al-Mu'mineen. Says, Ali, help me. Imam Ali is respected by a lot of these people. But Imam Ali tells him, Uthman, leave Marwan. Leave Marwan. He's not good for you. You're bringing all of these guys back. These guys have no interest in serving the religion of Islam. Uthman at that moment said, so what do you suggest I do? He said, what do the people want? Egyptians said, we want Muhammad, son of Abu Bakr, to become our governor. First Khalifa, Abu Bakr, his son, Muhammad, who lived with his father for a few years before he was raised by Imam Ali alayhi salam. He said, okay, these people said, you make him our governor. If you make him our governor, then we won't say anything. What does Uthman do? He writes a letter and he says that, okay, you could go back now, Muhammad bin Abu Bakr, you could go back towards the people of Egypt and make it clear to them that, okay, you could be the governor. What then happens? When the people of Egypt leave, at that moment, Marwan tells Uthman, tell them that these people had come, that they had heard a rumor about bad treatment, and then they were able to verify it with you, and that you made it clear that there was just a false rumor that was being spread. Uthman did that. The people of Egypt got angry. When they got angry, Muhammad bin Abu Bakr, on his way to Egypt, they stopped him, they found a letter. And what did the letter say? When this Muhammad bin Abu Bakr reaches Egypt, you, Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh, or whatever your name is, kill Muhammad bin Abu Bakr. The Egyptians found this out. They said, hold on a minute. So we asked you for this governor, and your intention was that as soon as the governor reaches Egypt, your foster brother governor kills him. Suddenly the Egyptians mutiny. The Egyptians, all of them, come together and they come and lay siege Uthman's house for 49 days. There is a siege on the house of Uthman. Of course, no one mentions this to our poor brothers in other schools in Islam. All they're told is first Khalifa, second, third, rightly guided. Okay, but wait. If he's brought Marwan in and he's brought... Question, where's Muawiyah? Uthman is Muawiyah's cousin. Umar has appointed Muawiyah. Uthman's now in trouble. 49 days siege of his house. Where's Muawiyah? They just kick him back. Just watch all this nonsense, man. You got this guy's appointed all of us. The one before him put me in power. He doesn't know what I'm going to do. I've been waiting for years. I've been waiting for years for this moment. And Uthman is sending messages to Muawiyah. Help me. Why? He's got Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan. Help me. You've got all the soldiers. Muawiyah sends soldiers, says to them, stop at a certain point. Just watch if it's worth going in or no. If you see that there's trouble, then just get back. Simple as. Tomorrow, we're going to realize that the same guy who's saying, just get back, is the same guy who later says, you know what, I want to avenge Uthman's blood if Ali is the one in power. They make it sound like Muawiyah was really worried. Muawiyah wasn't worried. Muawiyah was like, you know what, you got to die, you got to die. I've got an aim, I've got a particular power I need to reach. Uthman, who's the people who helped Uthman in those final days? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. The principles of the man, saying that, listen, let's not have this killing between Muslims. These things can be resolved, but you jumping in and you wanting to stab and you wanting to kill, let's have a particular way in which we deal with this. To the extent that some narrations mention Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussain were trying to stop the Muslims at the door of Uthman. But Mawla said one thing to him. He said to him, Marwan ibn al-Hakam, dissociate from him, we give you our full support. Did he dissociate from Marwan? Not at all. He loved every one of his Umayyad friends and cousins. Every single one of them. Hakam ibn al-As, Marwan ibn al-Hakam, Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh, the likes of Wali bin Uqba. Not once did he disassociate from them. Even when Imam Ali found him thirsty and found him with people attacking him, Imam Ali tried to make sure that water was brought to the house. Imam Ali made sure even Hassan and Hussain were attacked when they were trying to protect that house. Because Imam said that the Muslims shouldn't reach this level of fitna of killing each other. All of you are talking like this. Let's find a means in which we resolve this. Until eventually Uthman was assassinated. He was assassinated. Was Marwan assassinated? Nah. Marwan walked away from it to make sure that there's another day in which he will rise again. And all of a sudden, Hakam ibn al-As and the rest of Bani Umayyah, the Prophet only 50 years earlier or so from Karbala had said, there's a day when Bani al-As and Bani al-Hakam will be sitting on manabir and they'll be giving the orders to the Muslims. Therefore, Muawiyah, when he appointed Yazid, it's because he realized, Umar put me here. And now I'm going to play with this ball as I like to. Because Abu Sufyan has said to Uthman, the ball's in our court. Play with it now. I've been waiting for this day. And so when Muawiyah appointed Yazid, who's the reason Muawiyah was there in the first place? Umar ibn al-Khattab. Muawiyah appoints Yazid. What does Yazid do? Make sure all the Umayyads, they're all comfortably in their positions. Amongst all these Umayyads, what they all have in common? They hated Abu Turab, no doubt. Each and every one of them had a hate for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in particular. And I will show you more of this in the forthcoming nights. Why the hate? Look at it logically. Muawiyah, when you look at his grandfather, who was he from his mom's side? Utbah bin Rabi'ah. Who killed Utbah at Badr? Ali ibn Abi Talib. Who is it that was responsible for the killing of a number of Muawiyah's own cousins? Ali ibn Abi Talib. Who was the man always in the place of the Prophet when the Prophet was about to be attacked? Ali ibn Abi Talib. Therefore, now when the ball is in our court, take your vengeance on Ali ibn Abi Talib and his children and his grandchildren. I mentioned children, but Ali ibn Abi Talib's children at Karbala, how old were they? His children? 50s. You'd agree? Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam in his mid-50s. Sayyidah Zainab in her mid-50s. But I also mentioned grandchildren. Why? Because they had no mercy whatsoever. Even if it's a 6-month-old baby, they had no problem shooting their arrow into that neck. If your grandmother used to eat the liver of the likes of Hamza, what's a baby? A 6-month-old, they made sure that they decapitated that 6-month-old. A baby that we have a hadith was just born on the day of Karbala, they took out that baby. How many children can you each name were harassed in Karbala? How many? How many are there from young girls who horses kicked them with their hooves? This Sukaina bint al-Hussein, how many times horses trampled past her or pushed her or attacked her? But you know what was so wonderful? Is that the spirit of Ali also was alive in his grandchildren. You tried to attack Ali's name and Ali's children and grandchildren, but the spirit of Amir al-Mu'mineen was alive in his grandchildren. How many grandkids did Imam Ali alayhi salam have at Karbala? If you look across the board, see Imam Ali had a number of grandchildren at Karbala. If Imam al-Hassan alone had 7 sons at Karbala, that's 7 grandchildren of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Do we agree? Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, how many sons did he have at Karbala? Those are grandchildren, granddaughters of high. But who else had sons at Karbala? Zainab alayhi salam. Yes. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam. Many forget that while Hassan and Hussain gave their children, many forget that Zainab gave her children as well. But you know what I find remarkable? Is that how strong she remained even though she saw her boys walk to that battlefield. Because when it came to the time of Bani Hashim to come out on the battlefield, you found that Bani Hashim, when they came out, the youngest of them and the eldest, Aun and Muhammad, were not that old. And those of you here who have children, maybe 9 years old, 8 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, can you ever imagine bidding farewell to your child on a battlefield? May Allah never show you that day where your child comes and walks up to you and says to you, I hope you're proud of me on this day. When those 2 sons, they were sitting with their mother, 10th of Muharram in the afternoon. They came towards their mother and they said to her, Mother, are you proud of us? She said, I am, but I want to be more proud of you. Said, how? She said, I want you to go to your uncle now and say it's your turn to fight at Karbala. It's the turn of both of you. You'll make me proud if you do that. And you'll make me proud in the face of my Lord that I also had sons at Karbala. Imam al-Hussein was standing there. Abu al-Fadl was next to him. Abbas was next to him. And we're coming to Abu al-Fadl very soon in these nights. Imam was there. Abu al-Fadl was there. Suddenly Aun and Muhammad, the two sons of Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar, they came towards who? They came towards their uncles. They looked into the eyes of their uncles. There's something about Abu Abdullah that's unique. He feels sad that he hasn't quenched the thirst of his nephews. It breaks his heart. He looks at them, he says, what is it, my dear flowers on this earth? How can I help you? What is it? They said, uncle, it's our turn to go out and represent you. We cannot take people cursing you like this. We cannot take that you seem alone, that you seem that there's no one with you. And it would make us proud to go out. And he looked at them and he said, you two are wonderful boys, but go and look after your mother. I would prefer if you look after your mother, you stay with your mother. Why? It's as if you can see in Kufa a slab and in Sham a cake. I don't know what goes through the heart of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Every time he looked at Zainab and Kulthum, can you imagine what was going through his heart? So he said to Aun and Muhammad, he said to them, my dear flowers on the earth, go back to your mother and sit with her and protect her. They went back. Their mother was in the tent. She came out of the tent, she looked at them. She said, what is it? They said, he never allowed us. He said, why? He said, because we've got to look after you. She came out of the tent. Imagine Aqilat al-Talibiyin walking out onto the tent towards her younger brother and towards her elder brother. She came out, she said, Abu Abdullah, did you say no to them? He said, yes, I said no to them. She said, why? He said, because I want them to protect you. There'll be a day that you will need protection. She looked at him and she looked at Abbas's face. She said, I want to tell you something. Do you remember on the day of Safin when our father introduced Abu al-Fadl? How old was Abu al-Fadl that day? He said, yes, I remember. She said, do you remember the smile on our father's face that day? Do you remember it? He said, yes, I remember it. She said, I want the same smile. I want to see my boys go out. And then she said, Hussein. He said to her, yes. She said, how can I talk to my mother Fatima one day when Layla has given her boy, Ramla has given her boy, Rabab has her boy. I want to say to my mother as well that I gave my boys as well. Nobody breaks Hussein's heart like Zainab alayhi salam. Why does Zainab break the heart of Abu Abdullah? You know why? I'll tell you why. Because Imam al-Hussein, every sad experience he saw in life, Zainab was with him. When the door was broken, who was with him? When the rib was broken, who was with him? When the head was struck in Kufa, who was with him? When the poison affected Imam al-Hassan, who was with him? It's as if for Abu Abdullah, there's something going through his head that, you know what? She was always there for me. How am I going to be there for her in Kufa and Sham? How will I be there to console Zainab? So Imam al-Hussein at this moment, he said to her, you know what? How can I say no? And then he saw the two boys. And you know what they said to him? Listen to this. They said, Abu Abdullah, oh uncle, don't worry. Because from one side we have the blood of Ali and the other we have the blood of Ja'far. And don't worry. What's the last thing? And we've been trained by Abbas. Allahu Akbar. We've been trained by Abu al-Fadl. Why are you worried about the both of us? May Allah give you all patience. They both walked out on the battlefield, one looking after the other. Imagine that scene. Aun, whenever someone attacked Muhammad, Aun jumped to defend his brother. Whenever Muhammad saw Aun being attacked, he jumped to defend his brother. They fought valiantly, the both of them. Every time they struck a member of the opposition, they'd look to towards Aba al-Fadl. They'd say, Aba al-Fadl, are you proud of us? Aba al-Fadl, his heart broke when he saw his two young nephews alone on the battlefield. They fought until a man came and struck, not Aoun, he struck the heart of Zainab alayhi salam. When Aoun fell, Muhammad went on top of him. All of a sudden they attacked Muhammad as well. When they were both attacked, what did they call out? They both called out, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Imam al-Hussain came running towards them. When he came, he looked into the eyes of the two boys. One of them called out, Aba Abdullah, what a message to our mother Zainab. What is it? What do they want? What message do they want carried? Tell our mother we never drank any of the water of the Furat. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam carried Aoun, carried Muhammad. He went back towards the tent. He entered the tent. Zainab saw her two boys, but she never shed a tear. Why? She never wanted to break the heart of Aba Abdullah. She remained firm there at that moment. When she was taken to Kufa, she never shed a single tear for the boys. When she was taken to Sham, she never shed a single tear for the boys. When she returned to Karbala, she went to Abbas's body, but she never went to her boys. But when she returned to Medina, she entered her house. She went into their room. She saw two empty mattresses. She called out, my two beloved flowers, my Aoun and my Muhammad. I would have cried for both of you, but I never wanted to break the heart of Imam al-Hussain. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad. Raise us with the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. There are many out there who have asked us for the dua. All of you raise your hands, inshaAllah, wherever you may be. Let us recite the ayah of the Qur'an. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah, we ask you for the intercession of Muhammad and Al Muhammad. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Surah Al-Fatiha, especially in honor of our brother Ali, the son of Mulkiya, but before it the loudest of your salawat.